The Forest Park Council meeting number 1296, July 3rd, 2017. Let's stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Burns,
Here.
Collins, Cottle,
Here.
Herbie. Here. Holt. Here. Johnson,
Here.
Southall.
At this time, I would ask that we observe a moment of silence in memory of our departed council member, Sir Charles Lee Southall. Thank you. And with that, I would also add that, again, our condolences to Councilman Southall and his family. At this point, I would entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Collins.
Yes, I would move to excuse Councilwoman Collins.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we excuse Councilwoman Collins. Is there any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor of excusing Councilwoman Collins, let it be known by the sign of voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilwoman Collins is excused. We will move to item number 2, minutes. You should all receive minutes in your packets. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes, changes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. Item number 3 is presentations. The one presentation that we have that I'm aware of at this point would be the historical minute. It's titled Historical Minute, but we don't limit it to a minute. Historical Society, Mr. Brandon Weers.
Thank you very much. My presentation tonight is based on research that was performed by former Mayor Jim Lawler. He is unable to make the presentation himself because of family commitments at home tonight. But by way of background, Jim was a presenter for several years at the Osher Lifetime Learning Institute, called OLLI for short, and his topic was the Forest Park history. At one of our historical meetings earlier this year, Jim was the guest speaker and showed one of his OLLI slides. It showed Forest Park election results for 1964. This was the year Barry Goldwater ran against Lyndon Johnson and got thoroughly vanquished, giving Johnson the nickname Landslide Lyndon. Forest Parkers went overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton this past election, so curiosity arose about the intervening history. This is summarized in my first handout. I want you each to take one and pass this along. I should have enough for everyone here if I haven't miscounted. I want to draw your attention first to the left column. You will see that Forest Park favored Republican candidates every election through 1988, including Goldwater, by 60% when he lost to the country by winning only 38%. Notice also that 11% of Forest Parkers went for George Wallace in 1968 versus 13.5% nationally. The voting pattern turned around totally in 1992, as shown in the right-hand column, and has remained Democratic ever since. Seeing these results made it natural to ask the question, were there any demographic changes that might explain this? Population trends are shown in my second handout. Again, likewise, take one for yourself and pass them along.
Sorry.
I'd like you to note particularly the graph top line is for the total population. It leveled off in 1980. This is at this time during which the black population continued to rise from 1970 onward at the same time that the white population started to decline. These two trends appear to cross one another in 1993. That's assuming linear trends in the years between censuses. There's no hard data for the intervening points, so it's an estimate. But it's only a guess, speaking for myself on this subject, but I tend to believe that the city went majority Democratic before it went majority black. It's an academic question that may be of no consequence. However, the handout reveals another trend that is of consequence. Again, in my opinion, the other population of Forest Park has been rising since 1990. If it follows a trend that is already seen in the schools with data through 2015, the sum of blacks and others will surpass the white population in the next census. Now, that's not past history, that's predicted future history, but that's what the data seem to suggest, and this is our minute for history today. Any questions? I'll be happy to address if I can.
Questions, comments? Hearing none. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that, and we enjoy having the Historical Society to come and enlighten us. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda would be item number 4, communications from the public. This is the time for citizens to comment on matters before council or to ask questions of concern to them. When recognized, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address, and then state your comment or question. Council meetings are tape recorded for ease of transcriptions. Comments are limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address council? Hearing none, we will go to item number 5, report of standing committee, the first of those being Human Resources, Councilwoman Holt.
I do not have a report from Human Resources tonight, but I would like to send my condolences out to the Southall family. That would conclude my report. Thank you.
Any questions for Councilwoman Holt? Councilwoman Holt, I have no items on the agenda for you for the work session on, I think that it says, it should be the 24th. So, do you have anything to add?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Actually, it's the 10th. It should be the 10th, the work
Yeah.
session of the 10th.
Right. No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Next report would be public improvement and facilities. Obviously, that would have been Councilman Southall. Does anyone on his committee have a report for him? Hearing none, there are no items on the agenda for the work session on the 10th. And for public improvements and facilities. The next standing committee report is public safety, Councilwoman Cottle.
Just one thing, I wanted to pass on that this is a camping season, so please be careful in your camping efforts to stay safe. I also would like to let you know that there is also condolences to Charles Southall's family. Councilman Southall was such an important part of our group and will be missed sorely. And also, Forest Park Chamber of Commerce will be having a golf outing. It is July 19th, 2017. There's still time to sign up. Go to forestparkchamber.com, events, golf outing, and you can still register until July 6th. It's just such a great event. We're at the Mill Course in Winton Woods. We're able to support our city. And also, there's scholarships that are granted to Winton Woods High School students, Forest Park members' graduating children, and Forest Park business members that are furthering their education. So it's important to know all these things are provided from that process. So please still register. That will conclude my report. I will answer any questions if there should be any.
Any questions for Councilwoman Cottle? Hearing none, Councilwoman Cottle, I have any items on the agenda for you. Do you have any to add?
No, sir.
Next report with Ways and Means, Councilwoman Herbie.
Yes, and I would also add my condolences to the Southall family. And Charles Southall was also a part of our family in the city in terms of the staff and council. And so anytime we lose someone from our family, it also strikes us dearly too. So, like I said, my condolences go out to the family. The other thing is, I did want to mention that on Thursday of last week, I think it was Wednesday of last week, Economic Development Director Paul Grimm and I attended the Hamilton County Tax Incentive Review Board, which is the county board that reviews all incentive plans throughout the county. And also we asked them to also review our enterprise zone agreements. And all of ours were approved, both the tax increment financing, the TIF programs, and the enterprise zone. We do have one TIF that was expiring, which is Parkwood Plaza. And I will say that all of the TIFs met or exceeded their goals, and including the creation or retention of 3,000 jobs. Among the enterprise zones, there were 5 agreements. One of those is expiring, which is CTL, and also those enterprise zones brought in more than $20 million in investment and created 979 jobs. I also would like to point out some results of some things that have been happening with Economic Development Commission. I think I reported on the success of the shredding event last month, but the new shredding station at the municipal building opened January 1st for small amounts, and it's accessible anytime that the lobby, of the municipal building is open. Also, we have had about 43 large appliances that have been picked up, 21 with Freon, and we drain those, and then all of those appliances are recycled. I would also point out that the Residential Energy Efficiency Program has added 4 contractors, and residents that are interested in air sealing or insulation can contact here. We can put you in touch with one of the 4 contractors, and there will be a 50% rebate of your expenses up to $1,000. We've also had 58 trees that have been ordered already for reforesting for Forest Park. The art contest that took place, we have 3 winners, and banners of those will be in our lobby eventually. And we're also looking into establishing a teacher compost bin at the high school. So all of that activity of the environmental awareness has been going on, and I wanted to commend them for all the work that they do. That would conclude my report.
Any questions for Councilwoman Herbie? Hearing none, we have 3 items on the agenda for you for the work session: disposal of surplus items, the 2018 tax budget, and debt issuance. Do you have any to add?
Sir?
Next report is community development. Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no report for community development, but I would also like to add my condolences to the Southall family and recognize Councilman Southall in some of the things that many people may not have known or remembered that he was involved with. Councilmember Southall was also, prior to coming to Forest Park, a member of the Lincoln Heights City Council in the late 70s and early 80s. So he came to us with previous experience from another perspective in our area, and that showed in his level of effectiveness with us, in his level of patience, his ability to listen to all sides. He already came with a sense of what it took to actually make something work in an organization like ours. He was also committed to the youth in our area as well, as was displayed in his services last week. So I really appreciated him as an individual, and his level of confidence and the silent nature of his thoughtfulness. He was a good man. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Burns? Mr. Burns, I have no items on the agenda for you for the work session on the 10th. Do you have any to add?
No, I do not.
The next committee report is Law Committee, Councilwoman Collins, who is absent. Does anyone have a report for her? Hearing none, there are no work session items for her. And so we would go to the next one, Intergovernmental Relations and Communications. That's mine. I have no report. I would answer any questions if there are any. Hearing none, we will go to item number 6, the mayor's report, and I have a few things I would like to mention in the beginning. On June 27th, Mr. Ty, Human Resource Director Ty Smith and I met with Commissioner Denise Driehaus. She had requested a meeting. She wanted to discuss with us some of the things that she might be able to assist us with in Forest Park, and to hear from us the kinds of things that we might want to have her do for us. And obviously there are any number of things that we would be looking to the county for, but some of the major ones would be notification of when things is going to happen, especially things that would involve monies that would be due us or monies that would be taken from us. And I'm speaking primarily of, we have just gone through, I guess hardly it's an annual or whenever it happens, but every once in a while there's companies will ask that the auditor's office reevaluate or look at their tax burden. And what, unfortunately, those have been done in the past, and we've not found out about them until after the fact. And the significance of that is a lot of money is involved as far as the city will lose. Now, I'm not sure of the entire process, but I believe there is, quote, a hearing of sorts where the city would have liked to have been present to voice our opinion about that change in valuation, even if it did not actually change. At least we would have liked to have had the opportunity to be present and at the table to say what we think about it. So that was one of the things we discussed with her about that we'd like to see done. And several others had to do with economic development, where we've said to her, and I should add also, although he was not in this particular meeting, to Commissioner Todd Platoon, we would like the county to be more concerned or show more concern when businesses, not just in Forest Park, but they're out in the suburbs, are moving from our communities, especially into Butler and Warren counties. It seems to be that, the practice seems to have been, Serta's moving out of Forest Park. Okay, fine. we would like for them to at least pay more attention to that. And on the other side of that, we would like to see, we would like to start getting what I perceive is our fair share from the county. Again, at least if we aren't successful in attracting county business, at least allow us to be at the table when those things are being decided, so that at least we get to sell Forest Park. One thing that comes to mind very quickly to me, and it did there, is the coroner's office, the new one, is going to be, I believe it's scheduled now to be built in Blue Ash. If there is any one place in this county that does not need any economic impact health, it's Blue Ash. They have all the money that they will ever need, plus they could probably fund 3 or 4 other communities around here just as a gift. But there are other communities here that could have really benefited from that. And I think the thing that upsets me most about it is, in looking at all of the things that they say they were looking for in determining where to locate this place, we have them all. Nobody else is even close to us. I mean, in terms of access to the interstates, in terms of, we're right across the, we have properties, the city has property right across the street from the county sheriff's office. I mean, you can go on and on and on. Almost every single thing that they were talking about, what they would like to have in locating this facility, it's right here. So it's very hard for me to understand, number one, how come we didn't get it? And number two, how come we weren't given what I perceive to be, at least, an opportunity to sell Forest Park? So those are some of the kinds of things that we discussed with her. And as I said, I've also had those same conversations with, excuse me, Commissioner Portune, and I will continue to have those conversations because, like I said, I think, the thinking has to change. Believe it or not, and I know we in Forest Park know this, but I think the commissioners need to know, there is more than one city in Hamilton County. Now, granted, that one is the largest, but there are others. And when you're talking about doing things in the county that's going to have an impact on growth, let's at least look around the county and not just zero in on that one big city. The next thing I would report on is on the following day, the 28th, which would have been on Wednesday, I believe, we were invited to attend a meeting with representatives from the school board for them to give us an update on where things, not where things are, but where things are going to be as far as the construction of the new 712 building, because that is the one that would be located here in Forest Park. They provided us with some information, and I'm sure that there are going to be future meetings down the road on this issue and other related issues. I would like to take this opportunity to extend a thank you to them for having the meeting and inviting us, but also a special thank you to our staff. I think sometimes it's very easy to take our staff for granted. But when you have an opportunity to be involved in a meeting like that one, and you listen to our staff, they are on top of every single item that was brought up. And quite frankly, in some instances, they were ahead of the game. Well, frankly, in most of them, they were ahead of the game. Whether you're talking about Dave Biscayne, Harlita, Chris Anderson, Paul Brim, Rafiq, all of them. So let's try not to ever take them for granted and the things that they do for this city. You know, we recognize that we're a city of volunteers. You know, we depend on a lot of our volunteers, but we have one hell of a staff, and the more we utilize them, but more importantly, the more we stay out of their way and let them do their jobs, the better off this city is going to always continue to be. And in praising the staff, I'm talking about all staff, not just those that were at that meeting. I'm talking about you, John, and you, Sally, as well. Because without you all, and I'm not going to even say Ray Hodges' name because I think he knows, but we could not function. There would be no reason to even trying to function without those folk. And moving on to the next item, on the 30th, I did attend the services for Councilman Southall. I presented there a resolution declaring that June 30 would be Councilman Charles Southall Day in the city of Forest Park. And to add to what Mr. Burns says, in addition to being a councilman in Lincoln Heights, Charles Southall also served as mayor in Lincoln Heights. So again, my condolences to Charles's family. The next item, and I know this is a lot longer than I usually give a report, but I want to cover a lot of things here. The last item I'll cover is things that are going on in the city that people are noticing, and they're probably going to be more extensive. One is Duke Energy is presently cutting tree branches, tree limbs in our city, those that overhang the electrical power wires. Now, I've had a couple of people that, I've had to say to them, okay, yeah, that's not Forest Park doing it, but at the same time, when they cut these down, and there are a lot of them, believe me, if you've seen anywhere, when they cut, especially when they cut them out of the backyards where the wires usually are, they drag the branches out to the front and the side yard. And some people get a little upset that their yards are basically almost covered with these. But within a day or so, they do come back and they run these through the grinder and they clean up very well behind themselves. So try not to get too upset if you, the other thing is, one person said, well, do I have to let them do that? No, you don't have to let them do it. But if they don't do it, then you're going to be responsible for doing it. And I guarantee you, it's cheaper to have it done for free than it is for you to pay somebody to do it or to pay damages if those particular branches should happen to knock down wires. First of all, you're going to lose power. So that's going on. And also, there's quite a bit of road construction going on. So the orange barrels are going to be there, I think, for a while. Some of them are going to be obviously more intrusive and more restrictive than others. I believe, and let me get my directions right here, Mr. Burns, between Kemper and John Gray, is that right? On Mill Road, that one of the lanes is completely shut off. That's the one that's going south. Is it south? The other one is open, so depending on what time of day you happen to be going there, you might have to want to give yourself a little bit more time. But I believe, though, that they did warn people in advance. They put up big signs that it was going to be happening. But, sometimes we don't, we see signs, but we don't see them, and sometimes we see them and we don't read them. And then when they start closing it off, we wonder, well, why are they doing that? They didn't tell everybody. They did put up signs. So across the city, there's going to be some road construction going on, so let's be patient because it is to make the roads better. Not only the roads, but in some cases, they're putting in, there's this drainage dishes. Yeah. So And that would end my long report. I'll answer any questions if there are any from anybody. Hearing none, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 7, the city manager's report. Mr. Hodges.
Thank you. I'll report only two things. First, just to kind of clarify, typically the utilities have easements rights. They don't run their lines if they don't have an easement there. So in terms of whether or not they're entitled to do anything or not, they're going to have legal rights to clear whatever is in their land that they are operating in. The second thing is I'll report that the departmental reports have all been completed, included in the council packet, and also placed on file with the clerk of council. So that would conclude my report, but I would respond to any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Mr. Hodges? Hearing none, we'll go to item number 8, other reports. First of those being Law Director, Mr. Wykoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last council meeting, I've been requested to check in on a few legal issues to express opinion. I have shared with the mayor my thoughts about the proposed manager employment agreement. Also, I have sent an opinion regarding that issue of recoupment of monies related to Department of Labor. I don't know if you've all seen that yet, but if you haven't, I'm sure that'll soon be coming. And today, I worked on the most recent. I thought I'd bring this up verbally since I know you haven't seen it in writing yet, but it's the issue of having an executive session to discuss rules for interviewing council nominees. It's my opinion that does not qualify as an executive session matter. I would recommend you do it at work session, but my formal opinion will follow. There was actually a case at 11th District Court of Appeals in Ohio that dealt with termination of employees, and council met in executive session to establish the rules for terminating those employees. And the court declared that that was not a proper executive session. So that is the end of my report. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, John, so on the 17th, instead of having a work session to go over with council the procedures for those interviews, we can just do a work session ahead
Yes,
of it
instead of an
instead?
executive session, I
Gotcha.
recommend a work session.
All right, thanks. Next report, or any other questions for the law director? Next report then would be clerk of council, Mrs. Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to express my condolences to Councilman Southall's family as well. And for my report, I'd like to report that ordinance numbers 05 and 06-2016 and resolution numbers 12 and 13-2017 were posted as required. And that concludes my report.
Okay, Mr. Dirksen, I know we had talked about the executive session piece, so had that been published already, have been posted already for the public that we would have the executive session?
Not for the public. We haven't posted that yet. There is something on the agenda
Right.
that reference it. But there's something that we could do on the 10th or the 17th for a work session.
Okay, let's place that on the agenda for the 10th as a work session item, since that is a work session date, right?
Yes.
Let's place that particular discussion on the agenda for the work session.
Okay.
Yeah, because that would work better, because I believe that on the 17th, we have, is that when we have the public hearings? We have 2 public hearings. So I just want to caution council to be prepared to be here for a long time on the 17th, starting early with the 2 public hearings, and then, then the meeting.
Meeting and interviews.
You're right. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe in the last 2 appointments, there was a pretty much of a standard process.
Yeah.
So I would think if we pulled that information related to how those processes were
Yeah.
completed, we would be in compliance, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of debate about how or what, because it is a standard.
Well, yeah, it's standard. We did just that. We went back and pulled out what we've used the last, and the difference is In the past, we've always done these on a work session Monday instead of a council meeting Monday, but we could not do it on a work session Monday this time for a number of reasons. And we have to do it, we want to do it within that 30-day time limit, which means we could not do it the last work session of the month, which would be the 24th. So because we're doing it on a council meeting Monday rather than a work session Monday, it's caused us to have to tweak those procedures a little bit. But we've, again, going back to what I said before, Sally's got all that, staff took care of it, so I'm just kind of said, okay.
So I guess it would be safe to assume we would declare a work session, a special work session
No.
on the 17th, and then go into our regular meeting, or?
No, what we're going to do, we don't have to, we're going to do this on the 10th. The 10th is a work session. So we're going to put that on the agenda for the work session on the 10th to discuss the procedures. And I know that there will be at least 2 council members absent on the 10th. So they will be given that information through the minutes. But it's not going to change significantly, as you'll see, from what we've done in the past. It's just an opportunity to basically say, okay, here's what we've done in the past, and then we're going to follow that same practice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Anything else from the clerk of council?
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving to item number 9, new business. The first of these new business items is item A, resolution number 14-2017, and I believe these both have to be read in full. Is that correct? So would the clerk please read resolution number 14-2017 in full?
Resolution number 14-2017, a resolution to take retroactive corrective action on Fire Levy Fund and Fire Capital Improvement Fund transfers and advances. Whereas the city manager, in conjunction with the Director of Finance, is required to prepare, present to City Council the financial plan of the city for the upcoming fiscal year. And whereas separate authority to make transfers between the funds of the city and the appropriation established are required to balance the budget. And whereas the Fire Levy Fund in early 2016 was in need of additional funding while it awaited for property tax from Hamilton County to be dispersed, therefore legislation was passed by City Council to transfer funds from the Fire Capital Equipment Fund to the Fire Levy Fund to cover any shortfalls. And whereas the city transferred a total of $775,000 from the Fire Capital Equipment Fund to the Fire Levy Fund, and later transferred $500,000 back to the Fire Fund from the Fire Levy Fund by year end, and leaving $275,000 still in the Fire Levy Fund. And whereas upon further examination and audit, it has been determined that because the Fire Capital Equipment Fund is a reserve fund for capital purchases only, and transfers to other funds can only be made through a court order. And whereas the Finance Director recommends the following corrective action to avoid the burden of a court order on the taxpayers of Forest Park, staff is recommending City Council to approve this resolution to retroactively reclassify the remaining $275,000 as an advance to be paid back instead of a transfer, with all other transfers being deemed sufficient. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Forest Park, Ohio, Section 1, that the City Council of Forest Park authorizes the city to retroactively record the transfer amount of $275,000 that was originally authorized and recorded on May 2nd, 2016 as a transfer to be properly authorized and recorded as an advance that will be repaid in 2017 from the Fire Levy Fund to the Fire Capital Equipment Fund. Section 2, this resolution shall be in force and be in effect upon its passage.
Is there a motion, Councilwoman Herbie?
Yes, I would move adoption of resolution number 14-2017.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number 14-2017. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Urban.
Only that I think the resolution itself explains the situation very clearly, and I would urge adoption of the resolution.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Would the clerk please call the roll on the resolution?
Burns,
Yes.
Cottle,
Yes.
Herbie,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Resolution number 14-2017 passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is item B, resolution number 15-2017. Would the clerk please read this resolution in full?
Resolution number 15-2017, delegating authority to make declarations of official intent and allocations with respect to reimbursements of temporary advances during fiscal year 2017 made for capital improvements and acquisitions for street improvements and recreational facilities to be made from subsequent borrowings. Whereas Treasury Regulations, Section 1.150-2, the reimbursement regulations, issued pursuant to Section 150 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, as amended, the code prescribes certain requirements by which proceeds of tax-exempt bonds, notes, certificates, or other obligations included in the meaning of bonds under Section 150 of the code, obligations used to reimburse advances made for capital expenditures as hereinafter defined, paid before the issuance of such obligations may be deemed spent for purposes of Sections 103 and 141 to 150 of the code, and therefore not further subject to any other requirements or restrictions under those sections of the code. And whereas such reimbursements, regulations require that an issuer hereafter defined make a declaration of official intent as hereinafter defined to reimburse any capital expenditure paid prior to the issuance of obligations intended to fund such capital expenditure, and require that such declaration of official intent be made no later than 60 days after payment of the capital expenditure, and further require that any reimbursement allocation as hereinafter defined of the proceeds of such obligations to reimburse such capital expenditures occur no later than 18 months after the later of the date of the capital expenditure was paid, or the date the property acquired with the capital expenditure was placed in service, except that any such reimbursement allocation must be made no later than 3 years after such capital expenditures was paid. And whereas the reimbursement regulations provide that an issuer may delegate the authority for making such declarations of official intent and allocations to one or more individuals, and whereas this council wishes to ensure compliance with the reimbursement requirements, and whereas this council intends to construct road improvements and improvements to recreational facilities in the city, the project, the city intends that the construction costs will be paid from the proceeds of municipal securities issued by the city for the project. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Forest Park, Hamilton County, Ohio, the city. Section 1, definitions, that the following definitions apply to the terms used herein. Allocations means written evidence that proceeds of obligations issued subsequent to the payment of a capital expenditure or to reimburse the city for such payments. To allocate means to make such an allocation. Authorized officer means city manager or finance director of the city and any persons with authority at the time to exercise functions of those offices. Capital expenditure means any expense for an item that is properly depreciable or amortizable, or is otherwise treated as a capital expenditure for purposes of the code, as well as any cost of issuing reimbursement bonds. Declarations of official intent means a written declaration that the city intends to fund capital expenditures with an issue of reimbursement bonds and reasonably expects to be reimbursed from the proceeds of such an issuer means either a governmental unit that is reasonably expected to issue obligations, or any governmental entity or 501c3 organization that is reasonably expected to borrow funds from the actual issuer of the obligations. Reimbursement means the restoration to the city of money temporarily advanced from other funds, including monies borrowed from other sources of the city to pay for capital expenditures before the issuance of obligations intended to fund such capital expenditures. To reimburse means to make such a restoration. Reimbursement bonds means obligations that are issued to reimburse the city for capital expenditures and for certain other expenses permitted by the reimbursement regulations previously paid by or for the city. Reimbursement regulations means Treasury Regulation Section 150-2 and any amendments thereto or superseding regulations, whether in proposed temporary or final form as applicable, prescribing conditions under which the proceeds of obligations may be allocated to reimburse the city for capital expenditures and certain other expenses paid prior to the issuance of the obligations, such that the proceeds of such obligations will be treated as spent for purposes of Section 103 and 141 to 150 of the Code. Section 2, Declaration of Official Intent. The city declares that it reasonably expects that the capital expenditures described in Section B, which were paid no earlier than 60 days prior to the date hereof, or which will be paid prior to the issuance of any obligations intended to fund such capital expenditures, will be reimbursed with the proceeds of obligations representing a borrowing by the city or other governmental issuer in the maximum principal amount for such reimbursements of $390,000. And B, the capital expenditures made in fiscal year 2017 to be reimbursed or to be used for the construction of street improvements and improvements to recreational facilities in the city and related costs. Section 3, reasonable expectations. The city does not expect any other funds, including the money advanced to make the capital expenditures that are to be reimbursed, to be reserved, allocated on a long-term basis, or otherwise set aside by the city or any other entity with respect to the capital expenditures for the purposes described in Section 2B. Section 4, open meeting. It is found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the adoption of this ordinance were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with the law.
Is there a motion? Councilwoman Herbie.
Yes, I would move adoption of resolution number 15-2017.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 15-2017. Is there discussion, Councilwoman Herbie?
Yes, that was very long and very complex, but very simply, we have to have reimbursement legislation in effect to cover certain capital improvements which are taking place or have taken place, and this will allow us to use our note consolidation, to issue the debt and use our note consolidation resolution in the fall to bring this all together. So I would just urge adoption of this.
Any further discussion? Hearing now, would the clerk please call the roll on Resolution 15-2017?
Cottle,
Yes.
Herbie,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Resolution 15-2017 passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is item C, a motion. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move, as soon as I get to it, I would move that council consider recess starting August 8th through September 10th. This is the normal recess period, annual recess period for council.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that the council recess will be from August 8th, 2017 through September 10, 2017. Is there a discussion?
Other than, yes, thank you.
Mr. Burns?
This is the normal annual recess period for council that is typically starting on the first, after the first Tuesday of August through the second Monday of September. And I would just reiterate that for clarity.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for the recess, let it be known by the sign of voting aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is there any other business to come before the body? Any other business to come before the body? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.